Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A very good morning to you. First of all, let me express my deepest sympathies to the people of Nepal. It's really close and personal for me because from 1991, I've been going to that beautiful country, and not when I was at the World Bank, I did not confine myself to flying or driving. Twice, I walked for a week to see various developmental projects, to stay on the roofs of villages, and to interact intensely. It's a people that have so much in common with us Afghans. And at this moment of their sorrow, our hearts goes to them. We've also had a landslide in our province of Badakhshan. And again, sorrow binds us together at this moment. Thank God the scale is not that of Nepal. I begin with natural disaster because in today's world, South Asia has to rise to the challenge of cooperating on natural disaster management. We must put in place a system that allows all our strengths to come together and none of our weaknesses. We do not have proper warning systems yet. We do not have advanced warning systems. The SARC satellite that Prime Minister Modi is initiating, I think, has enormous implications for enabling us to work together. So it's a topic that I hope SARC will take in earnest. I'd like to begin with thanking the President of India, the Vice President of India, and Prime Minister Modi for a remarkable state visit. A million ties across a millennium or several millennium bind us. This visit has resulted in a forward outlook where those ties that already bind will be expanded, enhanced for the sake of peace, stability, and prosperity in this region of ours that on the one side has suffered so much, and on the other side has such immense potential. I'd also like to again thank Tagore for giving us a distinctive brand. Kabuliwala has done more for Afghanistan than $1 billion of advertisement could do. And I'm delighted that I've been told that a new version of the film is being prepared with some of the scenery actually set in Afghanistan. I hope that a new generation of Indians will experience Afghanistan close and would be able to expand it. Afghanistan has 5 circles of foreign policy: the neighborhood, the Islamic world, Europe, United States, Canada, Australia, Japan, Asia, the world of investors and providers of assistance. India uniquely fits in 4 of these. It is our neighbor. The expression that we use is from India to Azerbaijan and Russia. It is the 2nd largest Muslim country on earth. And particularly with Afghanistan, the shrines of the Chishti order to which Akbar adhered and sought the birth of Jahangir originates in Chisht Sharif in Herat. The haunting statues of Buddha, on the one side and the immense network of shrines in India, or a tribute to the two-way traffic that has bound us through the ages. Asia is in the process of becoming a continental economy. India is a shaper of the globalization to come. We've had globalization 1 dominated by European colonialism, globalization 2 up to the fiscal crisis of 2008, driven by the Atlantic and the Pacific. We're in the third phase, and the fourth phase, hopefully, would be a world driven by much more equality. And in this version, India is a shaper of the events to come. Asia is likely to have its 1869 moment. 1869 is a moment for two reasons. One, the Suez Canal was opened. Second, the US became a continental economy. The transatlantic and the trans-Pacific railway were joined. A hitherto geographic space in political space became an economic space. Afghanistan is not just metaphorically in the heart of Asia, but physically in the heart of this Asia to come. And hence, our positioning of our prosperity is not national, but regional and Asian-wide and global. And in our fifth circle, I'd like to thank the Indian people, the Indian government, and the Indian Parliament. India is the fourth largest contributor of assistance to Afghanistan. Over $2.2 billion of assistance has been provided, and this is administered with very little overhead in comparison. So some of the major infrastructure, the province of Nimrose was fundamentally transformed from a marginal ecological fragile environment, thanks to the Indian investment in a road simultaneously with Iranian investment on a bridge. Today, that province generates one of the largest customs revenues in Afghanistan, and there's more to come with the nature of the changes that we articulate. But equally significant, we look to Indian private sector to be a driver of Afghanistan's future prosperity. We have a number of key assets in Afghanistan. The first of our assets is our location. Until the advent of British colonialism, all roads led to and from Central Asia, Southwest Asia, and South Asia cannot simply communicate with each other over land except through a stable and prosperous Afghanistan. And now East Asia, which again was very much part of the Silk Road, is joined to this prospect. We are looking at the Wuhan corridor, our 60-mile common border with China, as a key source of connectivity. But location, which has been a disadvantage to Afghanistan, is likely to become our greatest advantage. We envisage, first, hundreds of millions of tons, and then hopefully billions of tons of cargo moving through us. Pipelines that will bring the surplus of energy of Central Asia to South Asia, fiber optics, pipelines both involving oil and gas, railways, roads, But the most significant thing, of course, will be human connectivity. I'm delighted to acknowledge here that we have 13,000 Afghan students studying in Indian universities. And again, to thank the government of India for renewing the program of scholarships for another 5 years. This human capital is going to be crucial to turning our spatial advantage into an economic advantage and one of cooperation. Our second asset is our water. We provide the headwater for every one of our neighbors. Only 10% of this is harnessed through 1960s technology. And there is an immense area of cooperation in terms of the changing environment. And if there are 2 degrees, if there's 1 degree of global warming, some of the provinces among our neighbors would become desert. If there's 2 degrees of global warming, there'd be serious relocation implications. So a coherent, orchestrated policy towards regional water management and learning lessons becomes crucial. We all waste water. And we must go from flood irrigation to drip irrigation as the basic goal. Our third major asset is our mineral resources. 1/3 of our mineral resources that have been mapped are estimated to be worth $1 to $3 trillion. Once the mapping is completed, the full natural wealth of Afghanistan will become. In a decade to 2, will become the largest producer of copper in the world, the largest producer of iron in the world, a very significant player in the global gold market, a driver of construction material. And we have 14 of the 17 rare earth material. So this Afghanistan is a very different Afghanistan than one racked by poverty and deprivation. But on our mineral resources, what are mostly focused is to avoid the curse of plenty. We do not want to become a rent-dependent economy. Our gas is looking very good. Our oil is beginning to look promising. But what we need is first to develop the institutions so the generations to come would live from this wealth, not that we waste it. Then the most significant asset that we have is our people. We're an entrepreneurial people. Begging is very rare among us. We're poor but dignified. And 36% of our population living below poverty, that is our fundamental challenge. Of course, you will ask questions on the security area, so I do not want to elaborate. But our relations with India have 6 dimensions. First, we will work together to make the Asian continental economy a reality. 2, the threat of terror as a changed ecology is where we'll coordinate in terms of information and policies to ensure that regional peace and prosperity and cooperation is at the forefront. Third, Indian assistance is generally appreciated, and we're looking to a closer linkage between aid and trade. Fourth is India's investment, and today I'm devoting the day to interacting with the captains of industry and business to be able to move forward. Fifth is human capital, and sixth is technology. India has borne the cost of development, research and development of a technology that can be truly pro-poor. And these areas have been the focus of our discussion. I'm very satisfied with the nature of the discussion, and I'd like to thank the Indian media for the interviews that they did with me prior to the visit, and I'm available. I think the rules are that I'll take 3 questions, 2 from our Indian colleagues and 1 from the Afghans. Yes, please.
Mr. President, this is Vijay Naik. I'm a consulting editor of a newspaper called Sakal from the state of Maharashtra. Excellency, before you left Afghanistan, there was a threat by the Taliban that they would start their spring, actions from Friday. And also there was an attack in Kunduz. In this situation, how do you look at the space for talks with Taliban, which is being talked about for a long time? Is it possible, and how are you going to deal from security point of view with this coming threat? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I have very fond memories of Maharashtra, so please do give my regards to Mumbai and other locations. Security insecurity is four drivers: global terrorism, criminal economic networks, Taliban in related groups that coach their differences in political terms, and irresponsible armed groups that both feel that they are allied to the state and yet challenge the citizens. During 2005 to 2014, the primacy may have been in the hands of the Taliban and related elements driving insecurity. What I would argue that the fundamental shift this year is that global terrorist networks have changed and have focused both from a perspective of narrative and of position of opportunity to target us. Pakistan's operation in North and South Waziristan brought about what I call the displacement effect. A very significant number of these networks relocated and targeted us. And simultaneously, events in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Libya brought about another realignment from Daesh. So our primary driver now is that today the Afghan state is fighting on behalf of all forces of stability. Every single one of our neighbors is threatened by these networks, as is the world at large. The war is imposed on us. The people of Afghanistan and the armed forces of Afghanistan are ready to confront it. The second issue is peace. Whoever is a political reason to disagree with the legitimate government must be engaged politically. This is not a question of taste, it is an imperative. We've shown through the formation of the Government of National Unity that we strive for an inclusive policy, not one of exclusion. Authority in our hands is not an instrument of divide and rule, but gathering and uniting. So if there are grievances, the place ultimately is the table. What's the difference between the Taliban and the international networks of terror? The latter have no place in our future policy. If they are produced by conditions in their countries or by ideas of global destabilization, then we must deal with them outside the framework of Afghan political processes. The Afghan constitution has a place for every Afghan. But the other networks are challenging all of us. So we will focus. The last thing I wanted to was to become a war president. But the third responsibility of the Afghan president is to be the commander-in-chief. It is imposed on me. I fulfill it with honor and I fulfill it with full determination. Whoever challenges us this year is going to find out that the Afghan people have the full will to stand behind and with their legitimate government and be led properly and in an organized fashion, and at the end of it, will come much stronger. Yes, please.
To talk about, how the theater of war in Afghanistan has shifted from south to north, if you could elaborate, and ISIS, Daesh, as you said, how real a threat is it?
Sure. The shift from the south to the north is precisely because our neighbors are being targeted. China is threatened by the Eastern Turkestan Islamic movement. Uzbekistan is threatened by the Uzbek Islamic IMU. You take every single one of these, they're seeking proximity, because their first round of affiliation with Al-Qaeda is now metamorphosed into a different set of position. They targeted provinces in northeastern Afghanistan, and then they tried to expand. We have managed to prevent a substantial part of it, but given the immense infrastructure that they had created over the years, they want to test. Fortunately, we've been able to contain them. But this year is a difficult year. We had fully anticipated and we are prepared. Daesh, with all apologies to Microsoft, if Al-Qaeda was Windows 1, Daesh is Windows 5. Terrorism is fast changing. Its ecology and its morphology and its communication strategies. Why is this happening? Because state collapse enables these movements to seek spaces. Al-Qaeda did not have territorial space. Daesh acquired territorial space very quickly. The control of funding that it enjoys is unprecedented in terms of a terrorist movement, an oppositional movement. But 3 is its pattern. It is 4 phases: organize, orient, decide, and act. It's called OODA, by a group of very well analysts who've been working on this phenomena. Its focus is not winning public loyalty. Its focus is to inject fear into the hearts of the people. Its direct focus is to eat. It's a man-eater, like the Bengal tiger. It goes towards focusing on its opposition and beheading them. The Syrian National Army is an example. And its narrative is global. Why does Afghanistan matter in that narrative? If you look into every third or fourth name, they call themselves Khurasani. Khurasani is our ancient name, medieval name from the Arab time, the land of the sunrise. We changed the Afghans of that period, the Umayyad Caliphate, and brought about the Abbasid Caliphate. Abu Muslim Khurasani led the forces, hence Khurasani. Then again, in the succession wars, Afghan forces surrounded Baghdad for 3 years and conquered it for Mahmud, which brought the Age of Enlightenment. So in terms of their narrative, and a lot of them were trained in Afghanistan during the time of troubles or during the time of the Taliban, but they've withdrawn allegiance to the Taliban. Because of it, it's a new phenomena, and we must deal with it as a regional threat. The nature of contemporary threats is not national. Terrorism does not travel with passports. It is not respecter of boundaries. And with Daesh, it's very explicit that the entire state system, as constructed post-World War II, is to be dismantled. So the imperative is that the states must acquire coherence of outlook, coordination, and then deal with this. So, and that's exactly why the alternative that we've put is Afghanistan must become a platform of regional and global cooperation. And I'm very pleased that with the active diplomacy that we've pursued, we're bringing this consensus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Harun Najafizadeh from BBC Farsi. Mr. President, if I may ask my question in Farsi because of the audience back home in Kabul, we don't want to overvoice you. But it's about Indian investment in Afghanistan. جناب شما انتظار داشتن که هند یک سرمایه گذاری بزرگ خصوصی در افغانستان کنه، چیزی حدود 40 میلیارد دلار. اما آیا بستر لازم برای این سرمایه گذاری در وطن فراهم شده یا کارهای زیاده باید صورت بگیره؟
تشکر نجیب زاده. سرمایه گذاری در یک روز سرمایه گذاری خصوصی مثل تعهد دولتی وارد نیست. بنابراین اول عدد مطرح نیست. شرایط باید بستر آماده شد. بحث امروز ما سر ایجاد بستر مناسب است. اول باید میراث خود بگویم. سرمایه‌گذار افغان حاضر به سرمایه‌گذاری در افغانستان نیست. نقطه اول ما است که از سرمایه‌گذار افغان شروع می‌کنیم. هفته گذشته بعد از این کابینه آمد ما بحث اساسی را امروز سکتور خصوصی افغان شروع کردیم. هر هفته 2 تا 3 مشکل بنیادی شون سرش غور میشه، به نتیجه میرسیم، به کابینه میره. تا سلسلتاً بحث‌های گذشته دی بود که اونا میامدن یک روز 4 ماه بعد باز میامدن عین مسائل تکرار میکردن. شکل پالیسی اقتصادی ما حالا به شکل منظم میشه که اول بستر سرمایه‌گذاری داخلی، دوم بستر سرمایه‌گذاری منطقه‌ای و بین‌المللی را با بحث با اینا آماده میکنیم. در چارچوب از امید است که هدف وسط مدت ما ایجاد یک سرمایه گذاری بزرگ باشه که بتونه موجب تحول بنیادی در افغانستان. 3 سوال گفته بودیم برادر. سوال آخر خیلی با پشتو کنین دیگه از خاطر که پشتو کی کسی تعادلی.
قیس موفق from Nega TV. ډاکټر صاحب تاسو نه غواړم چې د سلما دم د پروژې په اړه پوښتنه وکړم. څرنګه چې موږ ډېر یو حیاتي پروژه ده او موږ چې معلومات لرو د دې کارونه ډېر مخکې تلي، خو څه سیاسي ستونزې دلته وایي چې یعنې او بل پوښتنه دا دی چې یو د نظامي تجهیزاتو په هکله آیا تاسو هم د هندوستان دولت سره خبره کړې او که نه په دې هکله که معلومات ورکړئ؟
مننه. د سلما بند کې سیاسي مشکلات نشته، مدیریتی مسائل دي او صدر اعظم مودي واضح اطمینان را کړی چې دا پروژه به تکمیلي کی. موږ باید ځان ملامت کړو نه دوی. موږ وزارتونه د پروژو مالکیت نه درلود، تعقیب نه درلود، جدول نه درلود، په بحث کې نه و او فکر کاوه چې هر ورځ که یو دوست ایواد یو پروژه درکوي ټول مسئولیت په هغه باندې ده. اوس په دې میاشتو کې هر پروژه د افغانستان په یو منظم چوکاټ کې راغلی، د تعقیب یو چارچوب ورته جوړ شوی چې موږ وکړای شو دا ټول تعقیب کړو او بیا هم تاسو ته وایم چې دې برخه کې موږ اطمینان لرو. نور امنیتي مسایل په عامه توګه دي، په خاصه توګه نه دي. مننه.